I'm all jazzed up.
We talk about Handover. What did we have somebody tell us at one time in Handover, in a meeting about Handover? It's a real beach.
It's a real beach. It's a real beach.
We could put that on the
Handover.
on the
It's a
little
real beach.
YouTube picture on the beach.
Oh yeah.
Handover's a real beach.
Handover's a real beach.
I think that's what we're going to talk about. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Too bad we don't have a whiteboard. You can whiteboard it out. Draw that diagram that you drew for that client.
Yeah. I know. We could do that.
It was awesome.
We still have to figure that out. We still
Where you
have to have
do
a
like
whiteboard.
the commissioning, the startup, and where it goes through the process.
I thought that was pretty good.
That was a great one.
Okay, so we're going to talk about that. But first, I wanted to clear up a couple of things. You remember we talked about the penguins? You remember we talked about the penguins?
These chairs are weird.
They are.
Okay. Penguins.
And the northern lights. And you said, do they have southern lights?
Yeah.
They do.
No way.
Yeah. So they're
Are they pink?
I don't know what color.
Are they different
You have
colors?
the
The,
aurora-
northern lights are
the
green.
Yeah, you have the aurora borealis.
Yeah.
Is the northern lights.
Correct.
In the aurora australis.
Is it southern lights?
Yeah.
Nice.
So there you go. For the penguins,
I'm
they
kind of
do have
wondering
it.
if they're the same colors though. Because the northern ones normally are green. I think if you sometimes you know how you can see them further south than normal. Like last year you could see them like all the way down to the middle of the U.S. basically, like in Kansas. And I think at that point it was like a pinkish hue. It wasn't green, I don't believe.
I don't know.
But that's pretty interesting. I didn't know they had one down south.
Well, yeah. Well, they do. So we cleared that up. You know, if we have some sort of issues in our episodes, we got to clear that up, right?
What's that? The more you know, knowledge is power.
Yes. Yeah. Great. Also,
Reading Rainbow.
When Ted and I were doing the P&ID podcast, we had a little debate. Was it Cliff Notes or Cliff's Notes? Because I compared P&IDs to like Cliff Notes. Do you remember?
Isn't it Cliff's Notes?
Yeah, it's Cliff's.
It's Cliff's Notes, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Because it's like made from like a dude.
Yeah.
Made that, right?
Yeah.
And he made those little booklets.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So we weren't sure when we did that episode. And Ted, I think, thought that it was no S, just Cliff Notes. But
yeah, that wouldn't make sense though, because you don't like fall off of a cliff. It's not like a cliff note.
Yeah. So
that would just be the note stopping in the middle of the note. That would be more of a cliff note.
yeah, it doesn't really make sense, huh?
Dad jokes.
Yeah, we're gonna lose the audience. We got these big giant microphones now, and now these dad jokes.
I don't know how this one's gonna come out, bro.
It's fine. Your face is right there. We only have one camera. The other thing is, you asked me when I went to the ARC forum, what does it stand for? And it's the ARC Advisory Group, but originally that was the Automation Research Corporation, founded in 1986.
Primarily in like the oil and gas chemical industry, because automation means different things, right? Like automation in that is like for your
I'm
DCS,
just going to say
SAS,
manufacturing industries. I'll just say that. Yeah.
Interesting.
But I think they kind of distanced themselves a bit from those roots, and it's broadened into the digital twin and all that. Make sense?
Yeah.
So for those that are following, this series real closely, I wanted to follow up on a couple of things there. Okay.
For our 5 viewers out there, you know who you are. We greatly appreciate you.
Handovers a beach. We're gonna go with that. So when we're talking about handover from an engineering project to the owner who's running a plant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're talking about that in modern times.
Some owners want zero handover.
Yes.
Have you heard that?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get to that.
Like no handover.
Yeah. You want to? I would think we work up to that.
Yeah, we can work
You
up to
okay
that.
working
That's
up
fine.
to that?
I'm just saying,
What-
like that's the path where some people are trying to go, right?
All right,
some
so this
companies
is
out there.
Yeah, this is a situation where you've contracted someone to build a plant, let's say, and you're going to operate the plant. So you clearly give scope to an engineering company to design and build and construct something that you're going to then take the keys and you're going to run.
Hey, should we take a moment and just get that whiteboard and bring it over here and draw this out? Is that better?
All right, we're back in this episode of Handovers a Beach. And Blake decided that we were going to use this
Gotta have the whiteboard.
And the idea here is you've got a project being built on the left, and you got vendor listed, but I mean that's engineering company 1, 2, 3.
Your EPCs, right? Two.
The different design firms that are involved, vendors that are involved, right? And they all have parts and pieces of this project, and that goes into the drawings that are going to that are going to be given to construction to build the facility, right? All of the design, the tags, the equipment specs, all that sort of stuff, right? And then over here on this side, you're drawing what's eventually going to happen, which is that the owner of this facility is going to have asset management that they've got to deal with, and they're going to have operations and maintenance, right? And so when a technician in operations and maintenance needs a drawing, they're going to go back to what was delivered from the project, what was handed over from the project. Is that right? And they're going to research, they're going to look something up, they might have to redline it, and inside of that engineering and design world, in theory, you have all of the blueprints for everything that you built. Is that what we're trying to show here?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to show here. It's going to be hard with a mic because I'm going to have to turn and draw and talk at the same time. Traditionally, what you have, right, is you have a wall where you have operations on one side and you have your engineering projects, most of your capital projects on the other side. And what they would do, right, is they would take documents, your engineering and design documents from document control, and they would throw that over the wall, in this case under, because I'm drawing it that way, to your EPCs or your vendors. They would do the engineering and design, and then they would throw that back over the wall, back into document control. And then from that point, document control would take those documents, they would organize them, they might pull some data out of them, they would get that data into your asset management systems, your CMMS, your SAPs, whatnot. They would get some of that data into your operations and maintenance systems, right? And that's how they would traditionally operate the plant, off of that information. I think what we're seeing, though, in today's time, with advanced engineering and design applications, so like the Hexagon tools, the Aviva tools, right? What you're seeing is that owners, and just in general, are wanting to start bridging that wall and actually have those guys work in a shared environment.
Yeah, but the
engineering.
The topic of this is Handovers a Beach. I kind of just wanted to define the problem right now. Like you're already like trying to solve it. I'm telling you.
Oh, jeez.
I don't even think the audience fully knows the problem because we're still seeing this. Like on modern projects right now, we're still seeing a problem. What I was going to say is that over there on the left, because you showed something like there was already an existing plant. I'm going to say even in a brand new facility, it's a problem. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes it's more of a problem in a brand new
yeah,
facility.
So even in a brand new project that you're doing right now, in theory, so in like the year 2000, if you did this, what was handover?
Handover was you take a bunch of books. Well, in 2000, it could be CDs, like PDFs
okay,
on
1990,
CDs.
it was books.
It was books, though. You take a bunch of books, you create loop folders, you create different folders for whatever equipment or packages that you got, and you wrap all that up, and you literally handed that over.
So in 1990, it was a library. You were filling... You were taking, there was a project that was done. Let's say it's 2 years. Let's say it's 2 years worth of design.
That's correct.
Done, okay? And during that time, they were drawing drawings, They were reviewing them. They were getting approvals, all that sort of stuff. The client was looking at it. Everybody's saying, okay, I like this design. I like the names you've given everything, the descriptions, the specs, all that looks good. I sign off on that. And then at the end, you say, okay, look, send all of that to the printer. The whole thing.
Yep.
A whole room full of stuff. Print it, hole punch it.
Put it in a book.
Put it in a binder. Label it. Okay, this is a mechanical binder. This is an instrument binder. I got 100 of these. I got 100 of these. And it's a whole room full of stuff. They'd back a truck up, load the binders in there, and hand them over. Right?
Yeah. And there's two ways to do that, because you mentioned new projects versus old, right? So on a new project, they wouldn't have this, and they would just complete the project, put everything in a binder, throw it over into operations.
Yes.
Like hand it over.
Yes.
On an existing facility, they would have to come in here, get their data books, if you will, that were literal books, like you're saying, and then take that into the project environment.
Okay.
Make copies of the existing books.
Yeah.
Right? They'd make copies of the existing folder structures, all that jazz.
Okay. Yeah. So, right. And so that's how you do it. And it was a literal handover of documentation. And that would go in some library over here. They still had to do the same stuff at the facility.
Correct.
They had to manage the equipment. They had to run the plant. And they had to manage the drawings. But they were doing it off of paper. So they'd take one of those objects out. They'd adjust it. They might copy it, put it back in a folder. Okay, that's 1990. In 2000, what you're saying is, okay, maybe that was a CD. At some point, that became a CD. It's still all paper. I mean, it's still all files.
Still all file-based.
But you're just packaging it all up, and you're just handing over a bunch of files. That's when dot control was essentially everything you have in that engineering design and dot control was really just all dot control.
It was all dot control.
Because 100% of it was a document.
This whole box here pretty much didn't exist at that time, and it was all just dot control.
It was all, a whole bunch of documents, right?
Yeah, and then in that box, primarily, you might have different vendors or different EPCs, but that box was on this side of the wall.
All of the cool stuff that they would do, and then they would package it up and they'd give it over. Okay.
Correct.
Now, you still had problems at those days because you had a delay in order to package all this stuff.
Yeah.
And also, it was less sophisticated, so if you needed to search it, or you needed to research things, or you needed to use it, it was harder because it was
harder to do.
Disconnected information. All right, so you fast forward now to closer to where we are today. A lot of the guys on the left, the project side, are using tools that have databases behind them, right? And they're more sophisticated tools. And so when you go to hand those over, you would hand over, in theory, you'd want to hand over the application too.
Yeah, I think that so like you're saying, originally it started out where you were handing over paper, and then it changed from paper to CDs, right? Or literal. I mean, back in the day it was even floppy disks before CDs. But that moved into a file-based system. So you were handing over like AutoCAD drawings, right?
Yeah.
Or you were handing over Excel files, right? File-based system. What we're seeing now is a lot of those EPCs and contractors started using more advanced utilities to do the engineering and design. And what I mean by that is the utilities and applications started having actual database backends. So like SQL data backends. And so just as a progression of the handover went, owners started recognizing that to a certain extent and saying, hey, we don't want just the DWG files or the Excel files. We want the SQL database as well.
Yes.
As part of that handover.
Yeah. Now, there are a few challenges there. Number one, is this side ready to receive whatever that sophisticated tool is? That's one challenge.
Not always.
Right. Sometimes they're not.
I would say it depends on whether or not it's legacy or greenfield.
Because in a
Right.
simple world, you say, well, hey, look, on the left, we executed with a more sophisticated tool, but I'm just going to give it to you. I'm going to lift it up, and you can load it, and then you can operate based on that tool. So let's say it's a 3D model. I'm just going to take that whole model. It has a database behind it. I'm going to package it. I'm going to give it to you, and you could keep it and run it forever.
Yeah.
If you're ready to do that. Now, that alone doesn't sound like that big a deal. Like some people might say, well, why is that a problem? And there are a couple of reasons why that's a challenge. Number one is the readiness to be able to run that thing, to keep up with that technology. So the technology is a challenge. Another thing that's a challenge is we only show two phases here, engineering and then operations.
Cool.
But there are two phases in the middle there. You got to construct it and you got to start it up.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, the construction and the startup, they want to use that engineering data before it's 100% done. Because they're going to start receiving it. And these guys here on the left are obligated contractually.
Do you want to draw that?
Yeah. Well, they're obligated contractually to also do the final updates that come from commissioning and startup.
A lot of the
construction.
times they are,
Right?
They're that's called the as-built-in phase of the project. So they're in charge of not only the engineering and design, but then like you're saying, the commissioning and startup. And what you see a lot of times is during the commissioning and startup, you'll get changes made to that engineering and design, those engineering and design documents, right? And so part of what they're required to do is go back and update those documents, because those documents are the actual deliverables, right? So they got to hand them back over.
Yeah. Yeah, so what happens is the construction team comes in and says, hey, man, this engineering is going pretty well. Looks like we're ready to go.
Ready to go.
Give me the data. I know you haven't totally wrapped up your contract, but start giving me what I need in order to go build it, right? And so they take that information, and then they find some changes when they're constructing or when they start it up, and that's got to get fed back. So when you look at the timeline here, you have an operations team that wants the master set of everything, and you have an engineering team that says, hey, I'm not quite done yet.
Correct.
And this data has already been used. I've already passed it out to construction. I've already gotten it back from engineering. So what's happening now is the operations team is wanting to run the facility, and that cycle's not totally done yet on the engineering side. And so what happens is these guys start saying, well, I don't have time to wait for this fancy handover of data.
Just give me what you got.
Give me the best copy that you got, and I'm going to take off running with it. So I think if we say technology, being ready for the tech is one part of the problem. Two, the timeline is a problem.
The timeline's a big problem. Yeah.
Okay, so those are two scenarios where you have challenges in this handover. And then another one is inside of whatever's happening there in the engineering world, it may have never really been designed very well to be handed over in the first place, because you have 2 or 3, 4 different partners that are coming together, vendors, engineering companies. Maybe they're using 2 different 3D models. Maybe they're using different P&ID tools. Maybe they're using different database systems. Those things you don't just copy paste those into a directory and they just fit together, right? You got different versions, you have different vendors. You know what I'm saying?
You see that a lot if you have projects that or have like a lot of vendor skids, right? So maybe the EPC is in charge of the balance of plant, and then they're going to use a technology from Air Liquide or something of that nature. And they're expecting that, hey, Air Liquide is going to come in and bring their package, and they're going to have their engineering and design documents. I don't have to worry that. My job is balance of plant and tying everything together, right? And then the problem with that is okay, well, if they do that, like you're saying, their tag naming might be different. Their standard document numbers might have a different document scheme, right, or something of that nature.
Well, right. Ultimately, let's say that the main facility has it's 500 PNIDs and they're in a smart PNID. Okay, so that handover from the primary EPC might be relatively reasonable. But you got 3 vendors shown there. What if each of them has 100 PNIDs and one's in AutoCAD, one's in MicroStation, and one's just in a PDF that they don't even have the native files for, right? And so the owner receives it and they're like, well, hey, I got 800 PNIDs here, but they're in 4 different formats. You know what I mean? They look different. The technology's different. So like at the end of the day,
I would say what the main problem there would be, right, is not necessarily, hey, can you operate the plants? Because what they'll do is they'll print those drawings out. So then if it's an AutoCAD or MicroStation, maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe the symbology is a little bit different, but the actual software at that point might not matter. But when they want to make changes or do updates or have a follow-on project, then they're like, oh, wait, I need 3 different software packages to maintain these 800 PNIDs. Well, that's a problem. Or I need 3 different symbol libraries to maintain these 800 PNIDs. Well, that's a problem, right? So you got these conflicting, I think, modes of operation within side of this here. One is, hey, can I operate the plant based off what I have? Can I start it up? Can I get it going? Can I operate it based off what I have? And the answer would be yes. But then the second one, and the long-term one...
It's not sustainable, though.
That's the second one in the long run.
Technically, you have it all, but it's in basically like pictures or...
Correct,
right. It's static, and you
So
would...
that would be that second one that I was talking about, right? Like, can I actually maintain it for the life cycle of the facility? And the answer is no, not easily.
Okay. Right? And I put another one up here. So I consider, like, how does everything fit together? I consider that the engineering plan. There's a bit of a challenge there that the industry faces. Because when I say tech on number 1, is the owner ready to host all this tech anyway? Whatever the cool stuff is, do they even have an IT plan that can host it? Right? And then the timeline, of course, is a problem. 4th, I think, is the contract. So
that's a big one.
So you might be looking at a facility. I said 2 years of engineering, but a lot of times you could be nearly 10 by the time something was originally like envisioned, and the contract was created. By the time it gets started up, and so you got a lot, like all the way back when the original contract was being signed. What did this owner tell that engineering company? What are their requirements to get the information? A lot of times they'll say something super generic like, we must have native files of everything.
We get that a lot.
Which in theory is like, okay, well, if you have a CAD file, if you have a CAD drawing, I should have an electronic file where I can edit that drawing. Okay, but in this world of a digital twin or whatever, I really don't just want a file. I want a file that fits in with all of its similar files. I can't afford to get two files with different structure, different data behind it, different symbology. And so a lot of times the contract's signed so early for that engineering company, and it's very vague, and there isn't a real IT plan that says, hey, eventually I want to run the whole thing with a 3D model from this vendor with PNIDs from this vendor with this expectation. That's not defined all that well up front. And so the contract ends up being lenient, and the EPC is able to deliver something that's fairly underwhelming, I think, in the handover. Just kind of like, hey, this technically meets the contract.
Yeah, I think that actually happens a lot, right?
Okay.
I mean, we see that a lot right now in a lot of the contracts that we review where they say something like, hey, we want the native files. And then the question of that is when you use a intelligent design application, a lot of times the native file is a PDF output. And so what they're getting is just a bunch of PDFs. Not even like a CAD. They're getting a bunch of just the PDFs. Mm-hmm. And then they have to use like Bluebeam or something of that nature to do maintenance and operations.
Now, even if you say, hey, I like, for example, Hexagon Smart Tools or Octave now, they changed their name, but their Smart Tool Suite. Even if you said, that's my expectation, there's another level of specificity there. Like, how do I want those databases laid out? How's everything supposed to fit together? Like if I get 5 databases that are in technically the same product, but different versions, different formats.
You haven't really solved the problem.
You haven't really solved the problem. Like in theory, at an IT level, you kind of solved it, but when you really get down to the brass tacks sheet over here, you're like, hey, we haven't fixed it. We've got drawings that are basically totally different from each other. And trying to stitch them together is not working very well.
I mean, if you're lucky, maybe you get the databases for those applications, so you get the actual SQL databases. But like you're saying, if your symbology doesn't match, if your libraries don't match, right, then you're just causing. It's just the same problem. You're getting different flavors of a database.
Yeah.
Right?
So what this results in then is generally some type of reconciliation project to fix the data.
Fix the data.
And when you're looking at the cost,
and that doesn't include even though the as built-in effort that you were talking about over here when you're going from commissioning to startup, that's still included in normally the EPC's contract that they'll do that.
Yeah.
But you still have that reconciliation problem that you're talking about where you're trying to reconcile the variances to a single usable standard.
It's kind of like a behind-the-scenes problem, though, because ultimately, at the end of it, you don't have really new data. You just have a drawing that's very similar to the original, but it complies better and matches better with its partner drawings. And so it's like you almost question, like, what was the real value of that reconciliation?
Yeah.
I didn't get any new data out of it. I just sort of fixed behind-the-scenes problems that were hidden.
Well, and that's why I was saying there's two, in my mind, there's like two problems there. The first problem, which is easier solved, I guess you could say, is hey, does the actual information and data that we're receiving, do those documents, do those deliverables, can I start the plan up and can I get it running? Mm-hmm. And the answer 9 times out of 10, even with those variances that we're talking about, is yes. Yeah, you can do that, right? If you have 3 EPCs or 3 different vendors and they had different vendor skids, as long as they have all the P&IDs, as long as they have all of the information or those documents, they can commission it, construct it, commission it, and get it started up and running.
Yeah.
Then the problem is, well, how do I maintain that for the life cycle of the plant? And that's where you come into all the issues that you're talking about. Well, now it's harder to maintain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you look at the cost here, the construction area is a huge cost. That's where all your material is. You got the sensitivity on timing.
Oh, the timing is big.
Big machinery that's there to help you with your lifts and your construction and all that sort of stuff. So, right.
Any like long lead items that take months to get, right? So you have to order it months in advance before it actually shows up.
And so we could say all of this and people would say, well, yeah, whatever little inconvenience you have at the end is just unfortunate and you have to deal with it. But the problem is when you go to the end and you say, hey, it's $5 million to clean it all up. Like, yes, it was a huge project. Yes, construction was $1 billion. But hey, we still have nobody wants to pay for that at the end. Because it's running. We put all of our efforts into building it and starting it up. And we're dealing with this paperwork problem now. And everybody's like, we'll fix that later.
We'll fix it later.
And they don't. Now, some people would tell you, well, Mike, all of that's solved by just using some handover plan like CFOS. And I think what we're talking about is different. That's the Capital Facilities Information Handover Standard, right? And they're trying to build like the perfect handover plan. But that's really right now for the data. Each object has data, and you can assemble it into a map, and you can say this for this type of equipment, I want all this data. For this type, I want this. But the problem about the models, the drawings, all that even exists, even if you get a data register right, where you kind of compile the data for handover, that doesn't, to me, solve this application, like source application challenge.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, we were even talking to one client today. At the end of the day, you have to have the drawing, right? Like, you have to have a P&ID drawing. CFOS is not a P&ID drawing. If they get audited by any of the regulators or anything like that, they're not going to come and say, hey, show me a CFOS report of all your information. They're going to say, show me all your P&IDs, right? And they're going to audit your P&IDs. They're going to audit the actual deliverables.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the disconnect with some of those handover standardizations. They do it in a way to, hey, say we're going to facilitate the handover and make it easier, but then they're not focused on the part of the handover that affects the life cycle of the project the biggest, and that's, hey, I got 4 different variances in my P&IDs. Right? And how do I maintain that?
Right. They may all be able to be extracted into a handover register that's good for checking.
It's good for checking
and
making sure the information is accurate.
Yeah.
But that's not good.
But ultimately, down the timeline here, somebody's going to want one cohesive system where the drawings look the same.
That's not
they're
good
edited the same.
For standardizing or maintaining the document that is a required document.
Yeah. Now, you started in on it earlier, and one way that we're seeing this sort of change is the concept of, well, what if the system that's going to hold all the engineering and design was owned by the owner from the beginning? So that I built a cloud for all of that vendor work, all of the engineering work, for construction to tap into, all of that stuff. I built something that never really got handed over. It was just basically, I have step one, I have engineering companies working it, then they move out of the way. At the same time, construction comes in and they move out of the way, and then operations comes in. And like, that's, I guess, to me, the sort of the progressive future of this is,
I think that's
kind of
where
eliminate the
handover.
handover.
The future is going, right? What if, and the question is you're already, some of these EPCs, some of these vendors on this side, just out of pure necessity, started using more intelligent engineering and design tools, right? Because they're focused on, hey, how fast can I produce these deliverables, right? Driven by man hours or cost savings. So they're already using it. The question is, hey, what if the owner actually leveraged those utilities to facilitate the handover
And supplied them. So if the owner said,
right.
I have a 3D modeling strategy, here's everything you need, you just log into it,
Correct.
and you build the whole project. And I'm talking to you, engineering company 1, and you, number 2, you're going to log into the same place.
All work in the same place.
I will administer it. And that's really the crux of this whole thing, is the owner prepared to administer that network.
And that's a great stopping point for next time on the next episode. So, yeah, I think that's great. And that's where we were going earlier. Maybe I kind of jumped ahead of that. But I mean, that's a conversation in and of itself. So I think we need to divulge more time than we have today to talk about that. Because I think that is the future. I think the future is owners actually leveraging intelligent engineering and design systems to facilitate that handover, but also facilitate their overall operations.
Okay.
Because I think it has benefit just in that handover. So the value proposition just in this cost savings is incredibly high ROI in my opinion.
Okay.
But then you leverage that into your actual operations for your digital twin efforts, and then the value proposition, 10x's.
Okay, I'm fine if we take a break here, with the premise being we were aiming to say, why is handover so tough, right? And did we get
Handover is a Beach Part 1.
Handover is a Beach Part 1? Are these 4? Is that pretty much cover it?
Yeah,
Are we missing anything?
No,
I mean, it's a time crunch, it's a planning crunch.
It's a tech crunch, both on the project and on the operations side. Could be actually more of a problem on the operations side, like you were saying. Are they ready to receive it?
Yeah.
Right? It's a time crunch, definitely a time crunch going through your commission and then startup, and how that data gets handled for that, and how it facilitates it. And then I do think it's an engineering plan. I don't know. Would you call that an engineering plan, or would you call that like an information management plan?
Yeah, it's like my problem there is that all of those guys on the left, in our current date and time, they're not really thinking about the life cycle version of this. So they're going to do whatever's like.
Well, and that's not their job.
It's not their job, and especially if they're a vendor with a certain package, they want to deliver an off-the-shelf package, and
Correct.
so like it's a planning issue. Like, it's just what I'm saying is, no matter how sophisticated you make that, it may not be ready to stitch together.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
And I think that goes into your engineering plan, but I think that's more of a information engineering plan.
Okay, yeah.
Or something of that nature. And then the fourth one, which is huge, is always the contracts. Because these guys, and rightfully so, they're going to do what the contract states. Because if they go outside of that, you get scope creep,
Yeah.
right? And so
Okay.
they're going to try to stick as close to the contract as they can.
Okay. Well, that defines why this is such a big challenge, and then we can talk more about what we're seeing solving it.
Next time.